Courage is knowing what not to fear. The secret to happiness is freedom, and the secret to freedom is courage. Courage is grace under pressure. Courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not absence of fear. Courage is fire, and bullying is smoke. Courage, above all things, is the first quality of a warrior. Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. To have courage for whatever comes in life, everything lies in that. To create one's world in any of the arts takes courage. Happy are those who dare courageously to defend what they love. You can't test courage cautiously. Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. Never bend your head. Always hold it high. Look the world straight in the eye. Inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit home and think about it. Go out and get busy. Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. What would life be if we had no courage to attempt anything? There are no easy answers, but there are simple answers. We must have the courage to do what we know is morally right. He is a man of courage who does not run away, but remains at his post and fights against the enemy. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. Boldness be my friend. Let us not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless when facing them. Creativity takes courage. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. Real courage is when you know you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyway and see it through no matter what. People with courage and character always seem sinister to the rest. Have courage for the great sorrows of life and patience for the small ones, and when you have laboriously accomplished your daily task, go to sleep in peace. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life. Efforts and courage are not enough without purpose and direction. If you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life. He who is brave is free. Success is never final. Failure is never fatal. It's courage that counts. Loyalty and devotion lead to bravery. Bravery leads to the spirit of self-sacrifice. The spirit of self-sacrifice creates trust in the power of love. Those who lack the courage will always find a philosophy to justify it. We must build dikes of courage to hold back the flood of fear. Any intelligent fool can make things bigger and more complex. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. The opposite for courage is not cowardice, it is conformity. Even a dead fish can go with the flow. Fate loves the fearless. Courage is doing what you are afraid to do. There can be no courage unless you are scared. True courage is being afraid and going ahead and doing your job anyhow. That's what courage is. The most courageous act is still to think for yourself, aloud. You will never do anything in this world without courage. It is the greatest quality of the mind, next to honor. Courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. You can practice any virtue erratically, but nothing consistently without courage. Jump and you will find out how to unfold your wings as you fall. Courage is contagious. When a brave man takes a stand, the spines of others are often stiffened. The eagle has no fear of adversity. We need to be like the eagle and have a fearless spirit of a conqueror. Bravery is being the only one who knows you're afraid. Courage is fear, holding on a minute longer. The greatest test of courage on earth is to bear defeat without losing heart. The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity. The best protection any woman can have is courage. Courage is found in unlikely places. Everyone has talent. What is rare is the courage to follow the talent to the dark place where it leads. One man with courage is a majority. I know of no higher fortitude than stubbornness in the face of overwhelming odds. How few there are who have courage enough to own their faults or resolution enough to mend them. Courage is the greatest of all virtues, because if you haven't courage, you may not have an opportunity to use any of the others. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. Do not lose courage in considering your own imperfections. A great deal of talent is lost to the world for want of a little courage. Every day sends to their graves obscure men whose timidity prevented them from making a first effort. The greatest obstacle to being heroic is the doubt whether one may not be going to prove oneself a fool. The truest heroism is to resist the doubt, and the profoundest wisdom to know when it ought to be resisted and when it be obeyed. Courage is the ladder on which all the other virtues mount. True courage is not the brutal force of vulgar heroes, but the firm resolve of virtue and reason. Courage, a perfect sensibility of the measure of danger and a mental willingness to endure it. Valor grows by daring, fear by holding back. Courage is never to let your actions be influenced by your fears. I'm grateful to God for His bountiful gifts. He gave me courage and faith in myself. Love bravely, live bravely, be courageous. There's really nothing to lose. There's no wrong you can't make right again, so be kinder to yourself. Have fun, take chances. There's no bounds. Always be courageous and strong and don't fear. It is only necessary to have courage, for strength without self-confidence is useless. Courage is on display every day. and only the courageous wring the most out of life. Courage is often lack of insight, whereas cowardice in many cases is based on good information. We have a powerful potential in out youth, and we must have the courage to change old ideas and practices so that we may direct their power toward good ends. Either you decide to stay in the shallow end of the pool, or you go out in the ocean. I tend to think you're fearless when you recognize why you should be scared of things, but do them anyway. A great part of courage is the courage of having done the thing before. The trials on the road to world harmony are no greater than the courage of those who accept the challenge. Who asks whether the enemy was defeated by strategy or valor? One isn't necessarily born with courage, but one is born with potential. Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest. From caring comes courage. A lot of people do not muster the courage to live their dreams because they are afraid to die. Courageous people do not fear forgiving for the sake of peace. Courage and conviction are powerful weapons against an enemy who depends only on fists or guns. Animals know when you are afraid. A coward knows when you are not. If you are lucky enough to find a way of life you love, you have to find the courage to live it. If you could get up the courage to begin, you have the courage to succeed. Failure is unimportant. It takes courage to make a fool of yourself. Bravery is the capacity to perform properly even when scared half to death. Creativity requires the courage to let go of certainties. Fearlessness is not only possible, it is the ultimate joy. When you touch non-fear, you are free. The only courage that matters is the kind that gets you from one moment to the next. I have a lot of things to prove to myself. One is that I can live my life fearlessly. Life is to be entered upon with courage. It requires more courage to suffer than to die. Courage is not the absence of despair. It is rather the capacity to move ahead in spite of despair. Courage is a special kind of knowledge, the knowledge of how to fear what ought to be feared and how not to fear what ought not to be feared. Courage is a kind of salvation. You have to really be courageous about your instincts and your ideas. Otherwise, you'll just knuckle under and things that might have been memorable will be lost. Courage is being afraid, but going on anyhow. Courage to be is the courage to accept oneself in spite of being unacceptable. Faced with what is right, to leave it undone shows a lack of courage. We must have courage to bet on our ideas, to take the calculated risk, and to act. Everyday living requires courage if life is to be effective and bring happiness. Who could refrain that had a heart to love, and in that heart courage to make love known?